too, and there's a lot of disagreement about this one. Either 5 people were murdered in cold blood, or 4 people were murdered, and then the killer committed suicide.
Yep.
So, once again, I guess we're going to go through the whole thing, and then we're going to flip a coin and solve this thing.
Yeah,
Something like that.
Yeah.
that's about how I feel about it.
Yeah, well, So, our murders took place in the wee hours of the morning of August 7th, 1985, although I guess it's conceivable that it took place before midnight, too, so it would be August 6th. But
Some of them,
I'm pretty sure it was the morning of the 7th.
At least one of them.
At least one of them, yeah. The place the murders took place at was the farmhouse at the White House Farm in Tolles-on-Darcy, England, which some of you have probably not heard of. I'd never heard of it before I started reading about this thing.
It's a cute little area.
Yeah, no, I looked at it on Google. It's a nice little town, it looks like. Yeah, it's about 50 miles northeast of London. The people who owned the farmhouse were Neville and June Bamber, and they were being visited by their adopted daughter, Sheila Capel, and her twin sons, Nicholas and Daniel. They normally lived in London. Sheila had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in 1983, and her mental state was kind of up and down. She was
Going downhill.
yeah, kind of going downhill, yeah. It turned out that after the murders, the psychiatrist who had treated Sheila said that she told him, of course that didn't come out until later, among other odd statements. She said a lot of weird stuff to her psychiatrist, but she felt that she was capable of murdering her son. She also felt like she was capable of, mentally directing them
I was going to say,
Yeah.
she
to murder other people.
Yeah, she had delusions that she was in direct communication with God.
And also had delusions that she was she and her mother and her 2 kids were infected by the devil or possessed by the devil.
Yeah, she was all over the map.
Yeah, and so you can sort of see why people jump to this particular conclusion about murder-suicide. When the parents and the kids were found shot to death and Sheila was dead from what appeared to be 2 self-inflicted gunshot wounds, they jumped to that conclusion, murder-suicide. And then they changed their minds about a month later. This is still really controversial. There's partisans on both sides of this case. There's a whole you could almost call it a movement to reopen this case and retry the case.
Yeah.
Because of new evidence and stuff like that. And of course the police investigation was really bungled.
Yeah.
Actually, it was so bungled. I read somewhere that they said that in the police departments in England often call bungling a case doing a Bamber.
Yeah.
Because it was so bungled that it has become the mark by which everybody measures case bungling.
It is epic proportions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really a shame because there's a lot of important evidence that would really resolve this just like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
and
if they
it's
hadn't,
gone.
if they'd done it correctly, if they hadn't destroyed things, I mean, there's a list of things that we're going to go through that they could have done better.
Records and that's the whole
Well, I'm
thing.
sure we'll get into this.
Oh yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this. Because again, I think if we could get a look at 1 or 2 key pieces of evidence, we could probably solve it in about a minute.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. More on that later, though. The Bambers, that's Neville and June, they also had adopted a son, Jeremy Bamber, who was 24 at the time this took place. He is currently in prison for life for the murders.
For 5 life sentences.
Yeah. So there's
No
only,
parole.
Yeah, there are only in Britain. There are only about 20 people who are in prison for life without parole. He's one of them. The other ones are like serial killers. There are people out there who think that Jeremy is a psychopath who should be locked up forever. And then there are others who think that this thing is a huge miscarriage of justice. So, what for it? You decide.
I'd read a fair amount about actually the upbringing of these 2 children, Sheila and Jeremy, and it is very interesting that a house could have produced. At the very least, Jeremy has some sort of dissociative something. He may not be a psychopath, but there's some disaffected, dissociative something going on with him. And it's very interesting to me that 2 children can come from the same family, one with such a dissociative disorder and one with such severe schizophrenia.
Well, I think, this is a giant debate and we're not going to go too far into it, but the parenting has some influence on that because
Yeah.
June.
This is a pretty good case study in nurture versus nature.
Yeah,
right?
because June was extremely devout and impressed that upon her children in some very strange ways
Yeah.
to try to get them to go along with it. So
Yeah.
I can see how one of them would kind of break down. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but mentally just kind of give up. And then the other one just put up a wall and go on autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jeremy is not an emotional guy. But,
No, not at all.
I believe it was his cousin who was involved in this whole thing to a certain extent. His cousin said that he found out at a fairly young age that he was adopted. So what does that mean? That means that somebody had you, gave birth to you, and didn't want you. And they gave you away to somebody else.
And
so
Jeremy's
that's-
case was even a little more severe than Sheila's. Sheila's parents were unmarried, and she was an illegitimate child, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Jeremy's parents had him, said no, we don't want him, gave him up, and then got married a few years later and started a family of their own.
Exactly.
So I think that,
Yeah.
to me, that would be a little
Yeah.
more of a harsh reality to face of like, oh no, they're still together. They just chose they didn't want you.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, the parents sent Jeremy away to school, and which probably made him feel even more rejected. And then he made the mistake of confiding to a few of his schoolmates that he'd been adopted, and so then people started calling him like the bastard and all that stuff. So that was probably a mistake on his part. But anyway, with all this rejection, I think Jeremy just sort of shut his emotions off.
Probably.
I also consider him to be stereotypical British man.
Uh-huh.
Closed, quiet, reserved.
Yeah.
Well, to a very extreme extent.
Well, I know, but it's what you. Okay, I'm not gonna say this is all British men, but this is what you always see portrayed:
Stiff upper lip.
stiff upper lip.
Oh yeah.
And that seems to be, though he took it farther than most.
Really far.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, but anyway, Jeremy was working on the farm at the time for his parents for about 170 pounds a month, and plus he got to live rent-free in a house that was owned by his parents that was about 3.5 miles away.
Yep.
So he was doing okay, but not making money hand over fist. Oh, and
well,
by
that's not nothing. In
No, no.
1985.
1985. Yeah, it's not.
It's a good living.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, free rent.
It's comfortable.
Yeah, free rent. And,
Yeah.
And also, he supplemented his income by growing pot. They had like 300 acres, and so he was able to find himself a little patch and grow pot. Yeah. On the evening of August 6th, he visited the family house, probably for dinner because his sister was visiting from London and all
That
that
was the
stuff.
sense that I had, is that he did that fairly often.
Yeah, well, he was so close.
Free
by.
meal.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah. But depending on where you hear it, he was either hunting rabbits a little bit earlier and had his father's .22 rifle out, or else he heard, other versions, he heard rabbits outside, so he got the rifle and loaded it up. He wanted to go shoot some rabbits. Apparently he likes shooting animals.
Well, okay. I know that he has said that the family used a gun to shoot rabbits on the property. What I could never find is what was it they were growing on the property.
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
I've never
Yeah, I
found.
have no idea.
Yeah, me neither.
I looked. I kept looking, and there's never any mention, of wheat farmer, so and so. None of that. So I have no idea what they grow there.
Yeah. Well, they grow pot.
Lots of it.
And they obviously have a rabbit infestation.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently.
I don't know. I mean, if you have rabbits on your property, they're pretty easy to kill and they're pretty delicious. So
Well, good point.
They're also
Free
pretty
meat.
destructive.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true,
So
too.
it's kind of killing a lot of rabbits with one stone.
Yeah.
That was bad.
You're welcome.
Oh yeah, back to
So anyway, the gun.
Yeah, he left the rifle. It was had a scope on it, a silencer. That's kind of the cool thing about Europe is it's a lot easier to get silencers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, also called moderators, also called suppressors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a 22 rifle.
Yeah, 22. Yeah, had a 10-round magazine. So fast forward a little bit about.
When he left the house, he left it on the kitchen table, right? He didn't put
Yeah.
it back in the gun cabinet.
No, he left it
Okay.
at the table.
That's important later.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, later on it wound up somebody took the scope and the silencer off of the rifle. We don't know who did it or when. And the scope and the silencer wound up back in the gun closet.
Can I ask why you need a silencer or a suppressor to hunt rabbits?
I don't think you need it, but I think if you're trying to kill more than one at a time, you
Right.
probably don't want the sound of the gun to be really loud and scare the rest of the rabbits off.
Yeah.
Well, if you're hunting with a scope, though, they're at a distance, and 22s aren't that loud to begin with.
No,
They're not quiet either, though.
Yeah, the nice thing about suppressors is that you can shoot without having to put in earplugs or earmuffs for their little rabbit sounds, to hunt them. And it's
Their little rabbit
little
sound.
rabbit, whatever
Oh, yeah, they're
sounds
rabbits.
rabbits make.
Little rabbit calls.
Yeah, the sounds of eggs and eggs being laid by the rabbits, that kind of thing.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see the need for the suppressor.
Apparently suppressors are fairly popular in Europe just because it's nice, pleasant, it reduces noise.
I understand it. I'm just surprised.
It might have been also that perhaps they did it out of consideration to the neighbors, and they did it because they just again didn't want to wear earplugs.
Well, I was going to say for the neighbors, I don't really see that being a problem because when I looked it up on the map, the nearest neighbor is like a half mile away.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're right next door.
But they might be on the edge of their property when they're shooting rabbits.
Sure.
Walking
Yeah.
around.
It's a possibility. Okay.
Mooching, I heard
Yeah.
recently that's a term you can use for walking around.
Mooching. I did not know that. Okay, this next thing is a little bit contested. It's either at 3:26 or 3:36 in the morning on August 7th. Jeremy called police to pass along a message that he got from his father. His father had called him. He said from the farmhouse saying that Sheila had gone berserk. That was his words, and that showed up in the police report too. Had gone berserk and had the gun. He also apparently at that point called his girlfriend in London for some reason, and then he headed over to meet he had talked to the police. The police told him to meet them over at the farmhouse. So he went over there, and the police, one of the police cars passed him on the way. They said he was driving kind of unusually slowly. They thought he was, because apparently, as it turns out, he usually was kind of a fast driver. So he was driving slowly.
3:30 in the morning, and the guy sells pot.
Yeah.
Wondering if he wasn't a little loaded. Also,
Yeah.
I can just attribute that to if he's telling the truth, being nervous and afraid of what you're going to find, but still having to go doesn't
Exactly.
mean I have to go fast.
Exactly.
You want the cops to get there first.
Well, exactly. That's what I was going to
Yeah.
say. Is he definitely wanted the cops to get there first?
Yep.
Yeah. You can't really blame him.
Yeah, no, actually, no matter how this shook out, he wanted the cops there first.
No.
No matter who's guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense to me on
absolutely.
all. I don't think it proves or disproves.
I
anything.
don't think it does either, really. I don't think it's suspicious. Anyway, the police sent a car along about 4:30. I'm getting out of sequence here, but Jeremy had reported that his father had called him and said all that stuff about Sheila, and then the phone just sort of cut off. Is what he said. Although when they went into the house, they found the phone off the hook. About 4:30 a.m., a British telecom phone operator checked the farm phone line and found that it was off the hook, but all she could hear was a dog barking and nothing else. So that's at 4:30 a.m.
That's what happened? What was there a dog?
Yeah, they had a little small dog.
And what happened to the dog?
I'm not sure.
Dog
That's
was fine.
literally the only thing I've heard about the dog.
The dog was fine. The dog was running around the house barking.
Yeah,
Dog was unhurt.
Okay.
yeah, that's good. I'm sure they found a home for it. They had an extended family.
They did, yeah.
But we'll be more about the dog later. This is kind of this might just be one of those the dog that didn't bark mystery. Maybe. Yeah. So at that point, Jeremy was kind of urging the cops to go into the house, so they didn't want to because they were afraid of getting shot. Because he had made an inventory of the guns that were in the house, and he also made a drawing of the house, so showing kind of where everybody would be sleeping, also pointing out some spots where Sheila, if she was still alive and armed, might be hiding and could potentially ambush them from. So
And he also told them that she knew her way around a gun, didn't he?
yeah, I mean, she wasn't an expert, but he said that they'd done shooting in the
She'd
past.
used a gun before.
She's used a gun. And, picking up a rifle and pulling the trigger is not too complicated, really.
No.
Well, I don't know. I would say, I've used a gun before, but I don't know that, I could actually hit something at any kind
Well, that's
of
the thing about this
distance.
case, though, is that whoever did the shooting,
It was close up. It was really close
it was
range.
I think-
extremely close range. There
I think,
was no skill involved.
I just mean,
Yeah.
if a police officer was, rushing me, I don't know that I'd be able to be like, ugh.
Yeah, this is not the Call of Duty.
No.
You're done.
Yeah.
This is no Fallout or anything.
No.
Please, can we not do that again?
Yeah. I think that.
Portal, I know.
Yeah, but in this case, I think the longest distance was like 2 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no skill needed.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Because the cops were worried about getting shot, they waited for what the equivalent of a SWAT team, which apparently is called a tactical firearms group. And those guys showed up about 5, and everybody decided to wait until daylight to go into the house.
Does anybody else consider this timeline just screwy?
Oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cops
Absolutely.
show up at 3:30. SWAT team shows up at 5. We have had no contact with the inside, but have some tea. Wait for the sun to come up.
We're gonna chill out. We're gonna wait. Yeah.
What the heck?
I don't know. I mean, I guess in fairness, you're not hearing shot. It's not active shot
Yeah.
happening. I guess
Yeah.
on the one hand, you think, okay, somebody could be bleeding out on the floor, right? They could be dying there. But there's not additional violence happening. It's a stable situation in there, whatever it is. If we go in without the support we need, it could quickly become destable.
And it wasn't like they have the gear they have now.
Right. And they didn't
That makes
know.
a lot of sense.
So once the SWAT team showed up, they probably were like, well, we could, or, the sun's going to be up pretty soon, so we could just do it then.
So we'll wait another hour and a half.
Yeah. No, I agree. It seems insane to me, but on the other hand,
But again, now that I think about it, CNN shows standoffs for 7 hours before the cops go in. So I don't know why I think this is so unusual.
Yeah.
Maybe the cops were thinking, hey, there could be somebody in there with a gun, or maybe the guy calmed her down and got the gun away from her, and they all went back to bed. Maybe, I don't know.
Wait for somebody to get up.
Yeah. So
Walk out to pick
wait
up the
for-
morning paper.
Yeah, the
what
house.
are you doing here?
Yeah, the house was dark, by the way, and maybe they were going to wait till the light came on.
Well, they also
go knock on
reported
the door.
seeing somebody move around in the house.
Yes, one of the cops I think said he saw, and I think also Jeremy Bamber said he saw somebody in a second floor window. But then another cop said, we just sort of moved side to side, and it looked like it was really just an illusion of like the reflection of some moonlight, and so that's not so no word.
They also said they saw the body of a woman in the kitchen.
There was that too. Somebody said the body of a woman, but it turned out to be the body of Neville, the older guy.
Yeah.
Although I heard one report that somebody saw his body and the body of a woman in the kitchen.
That was what I had read as well.
Yeah, which is intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we'll talk more about that in a little bit later. But in the meantime, they were asking Jeremy questions like whether Sheila really might have gone nuts with the gun, and if she was really truly dangerous. And he, according to him, he replied, "quote I don't really know. She is a nutter. She's been having treatment," unquote. And well, that's insensitive, but he said it. I didn't say that.
No, I mean, truly, he
But
said that. And
that's a very simple thing about your family members that you'll say. She's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. See,
I would say that about a lot of my family members.
Except that you can't say they're getting the treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you tag that on, it becomes a completely different statement.
Yeah, totally.
So I can see why they would be a little hesitant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So eventually they made up their minds, and at 7:34, they took a sledgehammer to the rear door of the house and smashed it open. And went inside. They found Neville dead on the kitchen floor with 7 bullet wounds in him, and a lot of blood. And also he was
Outside of him. The blood.
outside. Yeah, I'm sure there was blood inside him too. But and he also had been beaten pretty harshly around the head. He had black eyes and a broken jaw. And, yeah. So and so there was some furniture overturned. Looked like there had been a struggle. Yeah. They went upstairs. They found June dead in the master bedroom. Also, they found Sheila, also in the master bedroom, lying on her back with the rifle laying on top of her. 2 bullet holes in her chin, underneath her jaw. Apparently a suicide. And also her 2 twin sons were both dead.
In their beds.
In their beds. They've been apparently shot in their sleep. Yeah. One had 5 bullet holes in them, and the other one had 3. The cops go back outside, and they talk to Jeremy Bamber and inform him that his entire family is dead. And apparently,
He kind of lost it.
well, yeah, I think he was in shock. He cried. He even maybe vomited a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything I've read says, and he appeared to vomit.
Yeah.
That's literally how they phrase it on everything. So I don't actually have a clear sense of if somebody said, "Oh yeah, he's dry heaving over in the corner," or like,
I think
"Oh
it was,
yeah,
he was dry
sick.
heaving or walked around the side of a car and bent over like he was going to lose his stomach, and somebody saw it.
Well, it's not unusual. I know a friend of mine. She lost her little dog that she loved tremendously. When she was shown the little corpse of her little dog, she did that. She's like started crying. Then she threw up and then she passed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway.